This conference will now be recorded.
All right, I'll repeat that for the recording then. I'll make a motion that we accept the consent calendar as presented. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mitch. All right, all in favor? Mitch,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Sarna,
Aye.
and Jamie Tarn is an aye. All right, we'll move on to department reports. Public Works, do we have Dan on?
Yeah, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Dan. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we've been pretty busy just keeping everything flowing on all ends, been doing some extra treatment technique stuff at the filter plant, getting some pretty turbid water again, but everything coming out of the taps staying pretty clean so far. Hopefully we can keep it that way. We had some maintenance on the ambulance building roof today. I guess it was leaking still. There was some confusion there, but hopefully that's resolved now. Let's see, gutters, trying to keep up on storm drain stuff. They've had a couple little areas where we were getting some plugged culverts, but that's been resolved. That's about all I have right now.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Yeah, I was wondering if there was some issues with turbidity with this recent rainstorm. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, fire department report. Do we have Alan? No. Alan, are you on? All right, we'll move on to police. Is Josh here?
I am here.
Thank you, Josh.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. We here this past month just been kind of catching up and making sure that we're getting all our end of year reports, everything done in anticipation of starting the new year. And we had a New Year's Eve went really well. Didn't have anything too major out there. And looking at our calls for service and our reports from this last year, which calls for service is everything between a regular written report to a medical call to anything that we go out on over the air. Looks like we had about 1,000 calls for service this past year. That doesn't include all of them because there's a lot of them that don't go out over the air. But a pretty busy year, a pretty successful one. And so, yeah, we're just wrapping up things from last year. And as you guys know, with the POW party this year, we just did the tree lighting and then created those gift baskets and still had our drawing. So there was a couple days where all the police officers and some fire people, ambulance, Terry was there. We all went out and made about 150 deliveries, which now I know what it's like to be a UPS driver. Everybody likes to get a package. So that was very successful. It was very appreciated by everybody. So even though we couldn't do our typical thing, it was a pretty big success. So we were glad to see that, put some smiles on people's faces, and got through the holidays. And now we're just beginning our new year and tugging along from there.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, being adaptive and flexible in these times is the only way to go. Can't do a lot of things we've always done before, but thanks for finding ways to do it and still be safe at the same time.
Yeah, definitely our pleasure. And thanks for everybody that helped make that a success, because it was quite a bit of work, but we had a lot of really good, awesome volunteers step up and willing to put in that extra time so we could do that.
Great. All right, Terry, are you on for ambulance?
Hi. I am. Yeah, Josh, thank you for letting us participate in that. I don't know that everybody was really excited when the ambulance pulled into their yard, but once Clint hopped out with the gifts, the mood changed a little bit for the better. As far as EMS is concerned, we had about 375 calls for service in the year 2020, which is only down about 10 calls from 2019. So even though COVID was here during 2020, it really didn't affect us too much. But other than that, we're just kind of plugging along and looking at different ways that we can serve the community, which I'll get into at my agenda item.
All
And
right.
that's about it, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, thanks, Terry. All right, next up is clerk report.
Yep, we are in the middle of wrapping up for the year end, getting prepped for closing out 2020, getting the W-2s out and quarterly reports. We're also working on ordinance updates right now. I sent you, Jamie, quite a few of them to look at. And Rico's on. There's a couple that we're going to be working with Rico on. And Rico, I don't know, you and I had a little conversation about that. Do you have any updates on a couple of those ordinances that might be able to be paid with a grant?
Well, the ones that we're working on currently are an accessory dwelling unit ordinance as required by state law. I'm not sure what, we talked briefly about whether or not we could do a comprehensive zoning code update with that, or whether we could do, I think Morgan, I suggest we talk about a subdivision ordinance update. I think the city subdivision ordinance was adopted, I forget, was it 78? It was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Getting Morgan's office to update that. And yes, depending upon the other work that we have, we could look at, that's a subject for another night, but we do have other SB2 planning grant projects that we could potentially trade for a subdivision ordinance update.
And
It's
then
really a
the
matter
other
of
ones
what the council wants to do eventually when we get there.
So, and I've sent some over to Dan to help me with. Josh's are pretty much updated. They just were updated a couple of years ago, but almost every ordinance has some changes the first, I believe, 7 chapters. So it is kind of a big job, but we are about halfway through it right now.
Thanks, Chris. All right, from the mayor's report, just letting you know that I will be on a COVID vaccination conference call with the state on Wednesday. It's about their rollout for the vaccine, and not getting a lot of information from our county. So I decided I thought I'd go to the state to try to be involved and get some more information that way. And anything we can do as a separate city and to get information, at least to pass it out to people, because I know it's very confusing to everybody on who's eligible, when, all that kind of stuff. And then the other thing, this will be Kate's last meeting as a council member, and we will be swearing in Cliff next meeting. So I would like to thank Kate for your service, and I, for one, will miss you. You've been a great asset on the city council, Kate. Your style has been very helpful in getting things done, so thank you very much. I wish I could give you something or bring food to this meeting, which is what I normally would have done, but maybe I can bring something over to your house that you like to eat.
I'm not going to say no.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie.
Yes.
Along that line, can I say thank you to Kate too for helping me with the transition, and just, we went through a lot together back in June, and I certainly appreciate everything Kate's done.
Yes, Kate took on the ambulance and as her commission, and she wasn't originally assigned that, and did a good job working with Terry. I agree, Terry. Good job. All right, city council reports. Do we have any? I know that through the holidays, we usually don't meet. The emergency plan group chose not to meet in December, so we will be meeting again in January and pick up where we left off. Any other reports?
Jamie, so the two things that I'm working on, and I will just say the COVID restrictions and then the holidays on the CDBG stuff kind of put a little bit of I would say a dampering effect on where we were headed. Although I do think that we have a couple loans that we were working on that I think we'll bring back to the table as far as getting them updated in the next month. And so I hope to be meeting with them, probably virtually until we get some restrictions lifted. I don't consider the CDBG stuff necessary or what would fall under the guidelines. And then the only other one, and it literally just because of the fact that I was gone and I'm not really quite sure what I would be asking for, but our drought response ad hoc committee that we had formed terminated or is set to terminate at the end of 2020, because I think that's the termination date that I'd put on in my request, and I am going to come back and ask that is extended. We are not done with our work. We did not get to the end goal of getting a conservation plan just due to the complexities of what we came up with, of all the different things that we needed to look at as far as, what metrics we would use as far as, calling a drought and how that would affect our watershed and our individual watershed, meaning the Etna Creek watershed, and then looking at what that might look like as far as water use. I think some of the things that Rico and Morgan are going to talk about today are going to help a little bit as far as fee structures. And anyways, I'm going to come back next meeting and just ask for an extension on that ad hoc committee for another. I'm just going to ask for 12 months just as a safety net to give us some time to kind of flesh out some of the details that are still a little bit complex and unclear to me at this point.
Okay, thanks, Sharna. And we do have we have a meeting on Wednesday that Sharna is organizing for the solar pool group. So we're still working on that. We'll move on. We don't have budget items specifically, so we'll move on to current business. So the first one up is Rico to discuss and approve the SB2 planning grant. So hi.
You're on mute, Rico.
Just kidding. I knew it was muted. Sorry. A little bit of humor to break the COVID craziness. So yeah, most of you are familiar with this. The SB2 planning grant, the state was kind enough to give us a lot of money to take care of some essential planning, basically to encourage and facilitate housing production. When I was briefing the new city council members about this, there was some concern about one of our projects that would allow multifamily housing by right in the R3 zoning district for fewer than 20 or 20 and fewer units. There was concern that we might not have enough water under drought conditions for 60 additional units. We said, hey, let's kind of step back from this, talk to Morgan, and we said, well, let's look at developing a water system model that will allow us to better understand what our current, because there have been a number of improvements since the 2004 master water plan was developed, and we don't really know where our system's at currently. So projecting forward for an additional 60 units under varying climatic conditions and development scenarios would be problematic, more challenging. We said, well, I think we could probably get this covered under SB2. Let's step back, let's do the necessary work, let's develop a water system model, understand what we've got, what our limitations are, be able to project for the future, and have the state kindly take on this the cost for us. So Morgan's pulled together a brief scope of work, and I'm asking the council, hopefully it's all well spelled out in your staff report, but I'm asking the council to basically direct me to work with HCD to amend the SB2 project description and budget and timeline so that we can do this work in lieu of the other task. It's pretty simple. And for technical details, other than HCD, I do look to Morgan. He is the expert.
Okay, I do have a question, Rico, on your proposal, and I really do appreciate. First of all, I'll just state that I do appreciate your taking the feedback and then thinking about ways that we could address some of the concerns, and looping in Morgan on this effort, because I think I do really think it's very important given, potential climatic shifts that we are potentially seeing now and in our future. I do have a question, and it's on your page 2 of 2, and hold on. It's paragraph 2 on that page, and what you've just stated where it says it's given the lack of current information on the city's water system, each project would be responsible for the cost of preparing an independent system analysis and assessment of the estimated water demand.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly that first part of that, the lack of current information on our water system, what are we lacking?
So again, that goes back to, so the master water plan was developed in 2004, I believe, Oscar Larson's report. And since that, and in that report, there are a number of improvements that are recommended to the city's water system, whether it's supply, whether it's fire flows, whatever the improvements are. Since that time, the city's implemented a number of those improvements, but there's been no current analysis of fire flows in the city to know what we've got. We don't know what our, we know what our supply is. We know what our current storage volume is, but we also don't know what the impact of the improvements has been made. So anything we'd be projecting would, you'd kind of be estimating. Obviously with Morgan's assistance, but we get a much finer estimate using a model. So what we need to do is sort of have Morgan, and again, this is where Morgan can speak to it better, but he's going to, if this is approved, be able to test fire flows, test flows throughout the city, know what he knows where the, what's linked and what's, what systems are looped, where it's not looped, what the pressures are. He can look at all of that, recommend improvements for furthering the city's housing goals. And he can also, at least provide some of the relatively accurate assessment at the front end when we get development proposals. But hopefully, this will also tell us whether or not it's wise to move forward with allowing 20 units by right in the R3 zoning district.
Oh, Morgan, you look like you're not on mute, but we're not hearing you. No.
How about now?
Yeah, you're good. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. In particular, my main concern is fire flows or
Right.
lack thereof, because there's certain fire standards that I feel need to be in place before we allow, an apartment complex or something like that to go in, or at least
Right.
the council should have an educated, number. If, are we 50 gallons lacking on fire flow? Or are we 1,000 gallons lacking on fire flow? So, if one of these developments came to me right now, that would be my biggest challenge, is trying to put a number on that, given that I don't have a model of the system. I would have to put together hand calculations and do my best to estimate it without spending the time to do a model. So it would be very helpful from a planning standpoint to have one developed, and also basically, just see where we're at. And I would like to play around with a little bit and make sure that Oscar Larson was on the right track too, because
Right.
there may be a different way of doing things that's less expensive than what they had in their report.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, I don't know. I don't know if you're ready for a motion, but I certainly am very supportive of, what Rico's proposing. And I think in order for us to make any kind of decisions on planning or really anything in our city, given that we're mandated to supply water, sewer, and fire, water is critical to all those three services. So I'm like 100% supportive of this, and would be happy to make the motion in order to make that happen.
All right, let me ask, Mitch, do you have any input?
No, I think it's a good plan. Go ahead and get it so we know exactly where we're at. It'd be good.
Okay, thank you. Kate?
I think we need the information, so yeah, I'm on board.
All right. Myself, I know there's some pressure to increase our housing in Etna. What do they call that? Multifamily units. Also, we have the group who wants to build the elder housing in town, and there's been units asked for change to build a couple small apartment buildings. So there is a need for the information, because we're not static, or we're not going to be static for the next couple of years in population. So I agree. I think it's something we need to do, so we don't have to do it one at a time, and we can have the information in front of us then when these do come to us for approval. So is there anybody in the audience who has anything to say on this? All right, Sharna, then go ahead and make your motion.
Okay, so I move to accept Rico's proposal that would allow bringing in Morgan and I'm sorry, I don't have all the terminologies.
There's a suggested motion on page 2 of your staff report.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Okay, so yep, I see that. Yep, yeah, thank you for that. That's helpful. I have new glasses, and I'm having a heck of a time migrating between the different lens views. But I move that we authorize and direct the staff to work with HCD to amend the SB2 planning grant project description, budget, and timeline as described in the staff report and discussed by the city, so that the city engineer can prepare a water system engineering analysis.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll go ahead and second it again.
I heard Kate first, so Kate seconded. All right, if there's no more comments, I'll call for a vote. And that will be Mitch.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Sharna.
Aye.
And Jamie is an aye. All right.
7 o'clock.
The motion is passed, and the best I can say is go forth and do good now.
Thank you. I'm on it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, just give me a moment here. All right, next on our current business is Morgan. And you are to discuss and approve the water sewer rate study. which kind of goes hand
Yeah.
in hand with what we've been talking about.
Right. Yeah. So the last time we had this on the agenda, it was kind of tabled, and I think we're supposed to bring it up in the second meeting in December, but I was unavailable at that time. So my recollection of what was asked for is the fund balances for the water and sewer. And I was able to get that answer from Chris and Charlie. So for the water fund, the capital improvement account balance, and I'm assuming this is after the Howell Street water main has been paid for, is 275,000 and change. And then the operating fund is about 86,000. So you're sitting there with roughly enough money to operate the system for the year and about 275,000 in the savings account for the water fund. And then hopefully you can help me a little bit on this, Chris, because I'm not I'm not very good at understanding the printouts that come out of your software. And I'm not an accountant that knows about credits and debits and stuff. So, do you know from looking at that how much money is in the sewer funds?
Yeah, let me see what I sent you.
Morgan, which page are you looking at? Just so I can try to track.
Chris sent me a printout of their general ledger report, which is the Fund 21, and
Okay,
it has
we might have that.
It has four columns on it, or 4 rows.
I didn't send it to City Council. I just sent it to you, Morgan.
Oh, okay. Shoot. Well, I'm just, frankly, it doesn't make any sense to me because I'm not used to looking at it. So
Yeah, I sent it to Charlie to review, and he said, "Oh yeah, send it just like that. Morgan knows how to read it." So, credit.
Well, I had an appointment this afternoon. I didn't get to look at it until I got over here. I'm sorry, but if I were to guess, it looks like there's 23,000 in the capital reserve account.
33. Which one are you on? Are you on 45 or 21?
The 21.
Oh, okay. 23,465.
Yeah, and then on the other one,
Looks like taking the credits and the debits, about 125,000.
Oh, okay.
127,000.
So that's what it doesn't total it for you. You got to subtract those two.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so about 127,000 in the operating fund and 23,000 in the capital reserve fund. And something that I didn't remember, it looks like there's a $43,000 loan also that's on the sewer account.
The sewer assessment fee?
Yes, 1983 sewer bond.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know. I'm assuming there's some sort of interest on that. So
That is in its own fund. It's not. It's in a sewer assessment fund, Fund 17.
Okay. Well, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me to have money in your savings and be paying interest on a loan. So if that, I mean, that would be something I would recommend you guys would look into and see what the interest rate
Well,
was.
Yeah, I did talk
how
to
much
Charlie
more?
about that, and Charlie stated, nope, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but we can have maybe
Oh,
a 3 or 4-way call.
okay. Well, maybe I'm not understanding what it is. Anyhow, those are the numbers roughly. So it looks like you got about, this year's plus 100,000 in the sewer fund, and this year's plus 275,000 in the water fund. And then I don't know if our meeting was it, did it answer enough questions where you guys would be comfortable moving forward, or where do you stand on it?
What are you asking, Morgan? You lost me.
Sharna was there, and who else was there? Clifford
Oh, okay.
and
And Brandon.
and Brandon. Yeah.
I mean, here's, I mean, I will be completely honest. I don't really fully understand the numbers, but I do understand the concept, I think. And so I'm just going to speak it out, Morgan. So tell me if I'm wrong, is that you are attempting to ensure that over time we have enough money that we are collecting from our base, our community, our users, that when we need to make capital improvements, we've set enough money aside from our rates that would increase over time to make up the difference or the lack of reserves that we currently have.
That's
Is that
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always been, and I'm really saddened that Brandon isn't here because he and I probably differ on this. I believe that we should be charging and increasing our rates accordingly, and so I would be in favor of this. I am I don't know how Brandon would feel about this, and I don't know if Clifford is willing. He's not on, he's not a voting member, but I would certainly love to hear if Clifford, because he was also had some, he was at that meeting that we had.
Yeah.
But just Jamie, I mean, I'm in support of making sure that we have the financial means in the future to maintain our infrastructure.
Okay. Mitch, do you have any thoughts on this?
I kind of agree with Sharna on this, that we gotta be prepared for the future, and we have to jack the rates up in order to do it. So I'm good with it.
Okay. Kate, any thoughts?
I think that the increases are, nominal. When you look at the actual dollars that the rates would go up. And I don't want to be paying a bond for the next 40 years if something happens and we have to take it out like we have with that sewer bond since taken out in 83 or whatever that was. So I'm all for it.
All right. Do I have any comments from anybody else in the public, the audience? I don't know what to call the group. Etal. I personally, this just kind of goes back to my stand with the fire department with putting money aside for buildings and vehicles a bit at a time, as in a savings account. So when you do need them, they're there. Because having to get a new whole treatment plant or sewer plant or something significant, as you all know, something significant could break our city. So I'm in favor of this, as Kate said, nominal increase over 5 years to help have a fund in order to take care of any expenditures in the future.
Well,
So I will, oh, go ahead, Morgan, please.
Well,
Don't
I
let
just
me-
wanted to bring to light, if we didn't have funds available, we would have had to build Howell Avenue without doing that water line project. And,
Right.
and then when we got the funding, we'd have to tear up a brand new street. So, I mean, that's another reason to have a little bit of savings, to be able to have that, make decisions that make sense and not be just always crippled by the budget.
No, I
Yes.
agree. I
That's
do have a question, and maybe Chris can answer this, but this money, so as we increase fees over time and that money accumulates, is that money that sits in the LAIF account? Is that or am I?
Yeah,
If we move it to the LAIF account, yeah.
yeah.
So what?
That's something that Charlie would do at the end of the year to see how much is in that water fund. He would look at that and say, you need to put 100,000 in LAIF, or that would be his suggestion on where we wanted to put that money.
Yeah,
And is there? Oh, sorry, Morgan.
That's
Go
what
ahead.
I would suggest too, is annually at the end of the year, assess it, and then whatever is not needed to operate the water fund for the year, move it over to the LAIF account, because it is interest bearing, even though it's probably a small amount.
And there's no way that a future council, so if we collected, say, I'm just going to throw out a number, $100,000 for this savings account that we're trying to establish now, there would be no way for a future council to use that money for other things other than water?
The water
It's
and sewer
illegal.
can only be used for water and sewer. Yeah, we
Okay.
can't combine
Individually,
those.
water cannot be used for sewer.
Right.
Water has to be used for water, and sewer has to be used for sewer.
Okay.
Yep.
So as we
Good.
collect them, they have to go into their individual pots, and those pots remain solvent only for the expenses that are within those. Okay.
That's
That's how
correct.
the laws.
Okay, perfect.
All right, do I have a motion then?
I'll make the motion that we
Okay.
accept Morgan's recommendations on the rate increase for the city water and sewer expense going forward.
I'll
I will
second.
Okay, Kate will second that motion. And if there's not any other comments, I will take a vote. Mitch,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Sharna,
Aye.
and Jamie is an aye. All right, the motion is passed to move forward with the water rate increase as put forward by Morgan Eastlick. Thank you very much, Morgan. We appreciate your work.
And,
Thanks,
and just
Morgan.
as a kind of an outline of moving forward, we need to send out a letter in the water and sewer rates. I guess you guys are familiar with that. And is John Kenny still your attorney?
No.
Oh, okay. So Chris, I'll get together with you and figure out who your attorney is. And once I get the letter drafted up, we'll need to send it to him for review to make sure I've got the law end of it correct.
That's
and,
good.
And then because I believe that there's a 45-day period once you send that letter out for people to have a written response, and then there has to be a public hearing. So that's kind of the process.
I think we have to post it somewhere twice as well, like in the paper or something. But I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
Well, I'll work at getting that together so we can get the ball rolling.
Thank you,
Thank
Morgan.
you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to Terry, who has a request approval to move forward with the community care program.
So I imagine each of you got copies of the letter and some of the kind of draft paperwork, but I wanted to give you a little bit of history on the community paramedic program, which started in 2001 in the United States, and that was to support patients and nurses and just the healthcare system in general. In 2013, UC Davis proposed, or actually prepared, a report showing the potential options for California. 2014, California started the first pilot programs, and not until September 25th of 2020 did they write it into legislation as an approved program. So we're not moving really fast, but I was able to be a part of some of this in North Carolina, and it truly does help smaller communities as well as big cities. I had worked in a big city, which really reduced the numbers of ER visits and ambulance transports, which that necessarily isn't pertinent to us, but it is a huge asset in a rural community, not necessarily to decrease ambulance transports, but just to help improve the health and provide another resource to the community. So I proposed the community care program instead of the community paramedic program because it takes additional schooling and monies and things that we don't have right now for the paramedicine program because it's still so new. They're not accepting new applicants at EMSA, which is the state agency for EMS. UCLA is the primary educational source, but since it's so new being signed into legislation, it's just a whole new avenue for California. But I really feel that we can help our community. And this is something that Kate and I talked about when I first took over EMS, is what can we do to help the community without causing any extra cost to the city of Etna. And I really think this could be a great program that's only going to expand, and eventually Medicare and Medi-Cal will reimburse for it. Mike's currently working on a grant that he can talk to you about if you have questions. But I really feel is a good starting point that's going to help our community without any cost to the city of Etna. And I'll stop there for questions.
I have a quick question for you, because you were talking about you'll go into people's homes and get their medicine set up. Do we have to have separate insurance? I mean, is it going to be something that, I guess I'm wondering what kind of coverage we're going to need for that.
No, so it would still be under our same insurance. What's going to happen is if you approve me to go forward with this, I will then have to have meetings with our local medical director, Dr. Sander, to make sure that she's comfortable with this. I'll talk with SSV to make sure our regional EMS agency is comfortable with this. And then we'll do things like talk to the hospital discharge planner at Fairchild and talk to local fire department. It would all be covered under the same insurance. We're not going to be doing any care. It's just going to be another resource available to our community. So someone gets discharged from the hospital, and I've seen this recently. There's one of my patients that I've transported that I can't talk about, but I wound up having to take him back to the hospital because he wasn't sure about the medications that they had discharged him with, because home health takes a couple weeks to get to. So if we had partnered with the discharge planner and he had been offered that service at the time of discharge, he would sign a consent. The discharge planner would then contact us, and then we could contact him for a follow-up visit, or her. But it would still be under all of our same workers' comp insurance. We would just need to make sure that our consent form and our contract with the patient was legal, and we'd probably have to run that by the lawyer. But other than that, we're just basically providing a resource. We're not doing any treatment in the home.
Terry, one of the questions I had was about liability to the city and insurance. But the other one was, what kind of impact will this have on you and Mike? I know you've said about it won't cost because it won't incur overtime. That's not my concern. My concern really is, what kind of burden does this put on the two of you in addition to what you're doing now?
So if you think about how many people we transport to the hospital, 2020 we had 375 approximately transports. Not all of those patients need follow-up care. Not all of those, actually 375 calls for service. Not all of those were transports, and not all transports result in hospitalization, and not all discharges from hospitalization require follow-up care. If somebody goes in for a simple, say, UTI or cardiac procedure, they're most likely going to get followed up with either cardiac care, or if it's a simple thing, they don't really need follow-up. So the impact is not going to be great. We're not going to have this huge rush of people like, say, Mount Shasta would have. We're going to have a very small, less than 10% of people that we're going to want to follow up with. And of those 10% that would even qualify for that follow-up, they would have to consent to us following up with them. And as you know, a lot of ranchers in the area, a lot of people are very private here in the valley, and they don't want anyone coming into their home. But we do have a small population that don't have anybody and would love someone coming in and saying, you know, these are your discharge paperwork. Do you understand them, and can we help you in any way? Can we help you set up that follow-up appointment? Can we help you set up your medications? Can we just take your blood pressure because your blood pressure was high in the hospital, and we don't want you to have to go back to a facility, especially with the pandemic. Can we just check your blood pressure for you? And there's going to be a very small percent they're going to want that, and I think it would be a huge benefit to be able to offer that. And in the future, this is going to be a reimbursable event. Minnesota was the first agency or the first state that did this, and they have their state Medi-Cal, per se, whatever the state is there, the Minnesota Medi-Cal or the California Partnership, whatever the equivalent is actually reimbursing visits now. So it's only going to be a matter of time that would be a reimbursable connection.
Well, a couple things on that. I think something like this, when it's new, you're right. Quite a few people won't be comfortable with it at first until they talk to their neighbors who said it was a good thing, and then they get more comfortable with it. But my question really wasn't so much about whether it's a good thing or not. That wasn't my question at all. It was really, what do you believe that at this point in time that you and Mike can take this on and it won't put undue pressure on you too? That's my concern for the employees.
Hi, Jamie. This is Mike. Just to step in for a minute on this. So what we are planning on doing, we're going to start real slow with this program. I mean, we're not going to jump in it, head first, dive in the shallow end or anything like that. We just want to start real slow. It shouldn't be overbearing for us. Currently, I am working on a grant with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association of America, and that would be a $200,000 grant, and that grant specifically funds EMT training and paramedic training for rural communities such as ours. And I'm hoping that with this grant, we can send at least 4 people to school, 2 EMTs, 2 paramedics, including myself, to get further educated and provide more help in our ambulance system, because right now, as you know, it's just me and Terry and a handful of the other people that are around. We're going to try and reach out to seniors in high school, our local fire departments, to see if any of them are willing or wanting to do this. So as far as it being a burden on us, right in the beginning, it's not going to be a burden. But as we move forward and the grant money comes in, if I should say it comes in, we're going to try and press further into it and get the training Terry needs to get the community paramedicine going and so forth. But right now, we're just going to keep it small and simple. Like Terry said, we've already checked in on a couple of residents to make sure that they're doing okay and things are going well, and it's worked out well for them and us. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Yeah, and if it does get bigger and it does become overwhelming, I would hope that you and Terry both would, with your commissioner, and talk to them about it and talk to the city council about
Okay.
it.
I do have a
Any-
question. And it just is a follow-up, Jamie, on your question, but are the appointments for this follow-up care, I mean, they're by appointment, so you can kind of work your schedules, I mean, as much as you can with the spontaneous nature of what you do, but can you, to some degree, work it so that your schedules, it is workable?
Oh,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I don't see us having a huge number of people. And if that happens, we'll kind of group. But with the amount of people that we do transport or just need help with resources, there's already stuff in place. Scott Valley Resource Center is here. Scott Valley Rural Clinic is here. It's not like we're starting something new. We're just an additional resource to the residents of Etna, basically. And we can schedule it exactly when we're on duty. If we have something that's pressing, somebody just got out of the hospital that's a high risk that really needs some follow-up, Mike could cover the ambulance while I went out or vice versa, depending on what type they needed. I really think that we can make it work. And then, like I said, we're smart enough to regroup if we need to.
Yeah. Well, I will just, and I will just say, Jamie, that when I read this, and I thought there was a lot of exciting things on the agenda tonight. I was very excited about this. My in-laws are elderly, and I read through that checklist, and I was like, even as much as hands-on as Darren and I are, because we live right here, having that extra help from them, I thought, wow, this is really an exciting program, I think, for our community. So I'm totally supportive.
And Sharna, what we found too, what I found over the years is, as a family member, you can tell your mother or father over and over till you're red in the face. But if somebody comes in from an agency and says the same thing, it's like, oh, they thought that we should do this. And you're like beating your head against the wall going, I've been saying that for weeks. But it just kind of reaffirms what you've been saying. And it's just an outside person saying, hey, we can sit down and we can write a med list for you, and we can get this squared away, and we can make it so it's understanding for you, so you know when to take your medications and where they are and which ones to take, versus you don't know how many homes that we go into and we go to get their medications, and there's 3 or 4 bottles of the same medication because they're mail order, or maybe they were discontinued, and you ask them which ones they take, and they're like, oh, the ones in the cupboard. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's 4 blood pressure medications, but they're the same ones. Please don't tell me you're taking one out of every bottle. Yeah.
Right.
Or they hand you a garbage bag full of pill bottles and tell you these are what I take, and then you're digging through 20 different prescriptions trying to figure out which ones they actually take and don't.
Yeah. So stuff like that can just be a tremendous help to both them and for us when we're responding on an emergency.
Yeah.
Mitch, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think it's a great program. I think, it's really great that they're willing to do this, and I think our community would be better for it.
Yep.
Kate, do you have any comments?
Nope, I'm all for it. I'm happy to see it on the agenda. I know Terry might put a lot of work into getting this all organized. So I think it's a fantastic idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say that you're right on, Terry. When somebody comes from the outside and said something, folks will listen as opposed to family members. Been through that a lot. I also can state that when you are released from the hospital and you're told all this stuff and you go home and you can't remember half of what you were told, even, it helps if the hospital writes it down, but that doesn't always happen. So I think it's a great idea and a great program. I just want to make sure that we're taking care of you at the same time, Terry and Mike.
Well, I
Terry, how-
appreciate that, and this is things we've been really passionate about since the beginning. So,
What, Terry, it's Chris. Where are you guys going to be going? Like, I'm assuming Etna, Fort Jones. How far out are you going to be able to go?
Initially, it'll probably be just our local response area, the main areas of the valley: Fort Jones, Etna, Greenview, Quartz Valley, and maybe Callahan. Further down the road, when the community paramedicine program comes out and we can get Terry through school on that and hopefully get this grant money and expand more, we could hopefully, with the help of new recruits, EMTs, paramedics, we could travel over to Sawyer's Bar and Salmon River and places like that on a monthly basis and help people over there as well, because they are part of this community. Even though, there's a mountain separating us, we do go over there and we do help them. But right now, I think it's just generally going to be our local people.
All right, any more questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
This is Mitch. I'll make the motion. We accept Terry and Mike's proposal for this care program.
All right, do I have a second?
I'd second that. Oh,
Okay, I heard Sharna. Sharna seconds it. All right, we'll take a vote for the approval to move forward with the community care program with our ambulance department. Mitch?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Sharna?
Aye.
And Jamie is an aye. All right, the motion is passed. Thank you very much, Terry and Mike. And
thank you so much for being updated.
yes, thank you. We appreciate that. All right, I believe unless we have any statements, we are ready for adjournment. If did I miss anybody? Before I do that, I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Christopher, I see your name on here. And did you have a report at all for us? We haven't heard from you for a little bit. Of course, Christopher's mic looks muted, so. All right, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing someone, if they had anything to add. All right, we will adjourn the meeting officially at 7:33 p.m. Thank you, everybody. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Sharna, can you hang on? Sharna, one sec.
Yep.
Everyone else can go.
Yep.
I just
Okay,
have a
thank
quick question.
Bye-bye.
So I sent you all those applications for the position. I know you've been on vacation. You
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to look at them. When you do, I can schedule those for you and manage it with Charlie if you want Charlie on there.
I'm not on that committee.
To hire the financial person? You and Brandon?
No, I was wondering. I almost texted Brandon today. Why are we getting all these? I thought it was Clifford and Jamie, and I wasn't party to that.
Huh. Okay, I'm gonna look over the notes and I'll get the right person then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to help Chris, but I'm pretty sure Clifford, being the financial chairperson, was one of them, and I thought it was Jamie was the second one.
I'll find out. I'll double check.
Okay, I'm sorry. I like I said, I'd be happy to if you need a second person, I'd be happy to do that. I didn't think it was me.
Okay,
but
let me look and then I'll get back to you and say, oh, I found it. Here's who it was. So.
Okay, and if it was me, I totally, yeah. what I haven't done yet is I sent, and I'm still trying to figure out this OneDrive, but I made not all these changes, but I had made changes and sent them back. And then for that letter, and then I actually looked at it at one point, like before I sent it, and they were there. And then when you sent it back, they weren't there. So I have no idea what happened to them.
I figured it out. When I looked at it on my laptop at home, none of the information was showing up. I opened it today at work and all of your notes were there. So I corrected it. We've printed them out and they're going to be ready to go.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, I'll just scratch that off my list then. Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me know if you do need something on that. Like I said, Chris, I'd be happy to help. I just didn't think I was on that task, but
okay.
If I am, I am.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Sharna.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.